Remember when Betty White was a guest star on Password and ended up meeting the love of her life? I do. Alan Packard Ellsworth was born on October 5th, 1917 in Mineral Point, Wisconsin. He was the first child born to parents Elmer and Layla. Unfortunately, Alan wouldn't get much time with his father, who passed away in 1919 from the Spanish flu. Layla would go on to remarry Homer Ludden when Alan was around the age of 5 and he took his last name. The family moved around a bit before finally landing in Corpus Christi. He would go on to study English and the dramatic arts at the University of Texas and would continue on to receive his master's degree in English in 1941. He married Margaret McGloin on October 11, 1943, and the pair had 3 children together. Alan enlisted in the United States Army as the U.S. entered World War II, where he was put in charge of entertainment in the Pacific Theater, which, in case you didn't know, wasn't an actual theater, it was the territories of the Empire of Japan. So it wasn't surprising when he went on to become the program director at WCBS in New York City after being discharged from the military. After being at WCBS for over a decade, he moved on to become the program coordinator for all CBS-owned radio stations. He wasn't just behind the scenes, though. He also moderated the show Mind Your Manners, which was targeted at teenagers and received an honorable mention Peabody Award in 1950. It was only natural that Alan would make the move to TV, and he did so, hosting on the Carousel. He also hosted Dance Time, and in 1952 was the original host of the televised version of the quiz show College Bowl. In 1961, CBS launched their new show, Password, with Alan as their host. Password pitted 2 teams against each other, with one of the teams containing a celebrity guest. While this was a professional high for Alan personally, his family was struck by tragedy when his wife Margaret passed away from cancer on October 30th that year. But it just so happened that 3 weeks into the show's debut, Betty White was Password's celebrity guest, and she would be Alan's lighthouse in the dark. Betty said that it immediately felt like they knew each other. They became friends. She loved his enthusiasm. He was interested in everything. Their romance blossomed during the summer of 1962 when they both appeared in the production of Critics' Choice at the Cape House Playhouse on Cape Cod, thanks to their agents doing a little matchmaking. They played a married couple, coincidentally. Alan said he fell in love with Betty on opening night. Alan proposed for the first time within 3 weeks of the show's debut. Betty said Alan stopped saying hello and greeted her with, "Will you marry me?" "No way," she'd reply, laughing it off like it was a joke. Didn't help that Betty had a boyfriend when the play started. She was dating a gentleman by the name of Phil Cochran, who came to watch the show one night and got to watch Betty and Alan share quite a lengthy kiss. The kind of kiss that elicited a from the audience. Betty said it went on, and while the audience thought it was a hoot, Phil didn't. He told Betty, "I don't like that guy." Upon her return to LA, Betty dated Phil for a little longer while Alan continued to shoot his shot all the way from New York. Alan continued proposing, and Betty continued refusing. She said that she felt like a failure because of her 2 divorces, that she kept kicking herself for agreeing to marry those guys. But Alan was different. Betty said that he was intellectually wonderful, he was silly, he was romantic, that he knew how to court a gal. Even though Betty refused his proposals at first, Alan wasn't letting her go. Eventually, he bought a ring, a beautiful gold band with diamonds all around that he wore on a chain around his neck so that she couldn't miss it. Betty said it got all gunked up with spray tan and whatnot, but he vowed to only take the ring off for one reason. She said no for almost an entire year until Easter 1963 when he sent her a white stuffed bunny with diamond, ruby, and sapphire earrings clipped to its fuzzy little ears. It included a card that read, "Please say yes." When Alan called her that night, she answered the phone with an, "Okay, yes." Afterwards, he said she was the only woman in the world who would say yes to marrying him for not the earrings, but for the stuffed bunny. The pair were married on June 14th, 1963 at the Sands Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. She later told Larry King that she fell for Alan because there wasn't anything he didn't want to know more about and hear about. That was fun to live with. That what you saw with Alan was what you got. He was one of the nicest, dearest people. Now, while Betty never intended to have children of her own, she said that she was so compulsive about stuff that if she had gotten pregnant, that would have been her whole focus, and she knew that she wanted to focus on her career and wouldn't have been able to manage both. She did become a stepmother to Alan's children, David, then 14, Martha, then 13, and Sarah, then 10. Betty continued to appear on Password whenever she could while her career continued to grow. Years into their marriage, Password producer Lynn Boland said that the couple were still like newlyweds. When they couldn't be together at work, they would call each other from the dressing rooms. Alan also used the opening catchphrase, "Hi, doll," on the show, which was directed to Betty's mom, his mother-in-law, Tess White. And that's pretty cute. Betty said even once they were an old married couple, they continued to date. Alan would call Betty up during the day and ask her out. He'd barbecue a chicken, they'd open a bottle of wine, put on a record, and dance. She said it was a far cry from her first marriage in terms of chickens. He would also leave love notes around the house for Betty. She said that's how she learned that she needed glasses. The New York version of Password was canceled in 1967, but would be revived in the City of Angels in 1971 and aired until 1975. Meanwhile, Betty was out earning more Emmy nominations with her role on The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Betty told Katie Kirk that Sue Ann Nivens was the neighborhood nymphomaniac and that people would ask Alan, "How close to Betty is Sue Ann?" He would respond with, "Well, they're the same except Betty can't cook, of course." While Password ended in 1975, it was revived again as Password Plus in 1979. Alan continued to host, but had to take a break when he was diagnosed with stomach cancer in 1980. While he had hoped the break would be temporary, it wasn't. The cancer spread slowly, allowing the couple to build their dream home getaway in Carmel, California. Carol Burnett said that while Alan was receiving treatment, Betty would come in and rehearse my show and then leave to go to the hospital. She just soldiered through. Brilliant as always. Betty was able to take Alan up to the house once it was completed. He slept there for 2 nights before passing away on June 9th, 1981, just 5 days before their 18th wedding anniversary. He was 63 years old. In the days after Alan passed, Betty recalled going upstairs and seeing their dogs laying on one of Alan's robes. She fell apart and they all ended up sitting on the floor together. But publicly, Betty preferred to keep her sadness to herself, saying that if one more person had said, "Oh, you're so strong," she would have decked them. Betty never remarried, saying of Alan, "When you've had the best, who needs the rest?" It was special. It was very special. Although she did add, but that doesn't keep you from having fun with somebody and going out and having dates. And Robert Redford never calls. In 1985, Betty would take up one of her most iconic TV roles, that of Rose Nyland in The Golden Girls. Much like Betty, Rose was a widow who dated throughout the show but never remarried. Betty said that it was impossible for her to refer to Charlie, Rose's husband, without thinking of Alan. That's just art imitating life. Everyone who experienced Betty and Alan together knew how much they loved each other. In 1987, Johnny Carson married Alex Moss, and during a commercial break, he leaned over to Betty and said, "I know what you had with Alan. I finally found it. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life." It was a lovely moment, she said. In 1988, Alan's star was added to the Hollywood Walk of Fame right next to Betty's. She told the crowd, "I cannot express what this day means to me, and don't be surprised if, in the wee hours of the morning, our stars are fooling around." When Betty was on Hot in Cleveland, her co-stars would ask her questions about Alan all the time, and when she asked why they were so interested in him, she said the answer was simple: "We love the look you get on your face when you talk about him." And if my heart wasn't already broken into a million pieces while doing this video, she told Oprah in 2015, "I spent a whole year, wasted a whole year, that Alan and I could have had together saying no. I wouldn't marry him. I wasted a whole year we could have had together, but we made it. We finally did." So if you learn anything from this one, please tell the people close to you how you feel about them. Don't let time slip by. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you liked this one. If you did and you'd like to support the cult, please save and share this video. It really helps. And don't forget to follow me in other places like the Gram and the Tube, just in case. There's also stickers like this convenient Valentine's Day one that says that your cult leader loves you, because it do. Good day. May the cult be with you.